The HOA spent $85,000 building a garage on land they never owned, and I never once tried to stop them. In fact, I stood back, watched every truck arrive, every wall go up, and every dollar get poured into the project. While the board celebrated what they believed was their newest community improvement, I was quietly signing documents that would eventually make the entire structure mine. They believed they were expanding HOA property. What they were really doing was constructing an incredibly expensive present for me. Before we get into the story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Leave your country in the comments below. My name is Renata Cole, and I've lived in Brookhaven Ridge for a little over 11 years. It's one of those neighborhoods that prides itself on being picture perfect. Every lawn looks like it belongs in a magazine, and the HOA is famous for sending violation notices over the smallest things. Leave a garbage bin out for a few extra minutes, and you'll probably get a warning letter in your mailbox. Right next to my home sat an empty grassy lot. It had been vacant for as long as anyone could remember. Most residents assumed it was HOA property. To be honest, I never corrected them. For years, I didn't see any reason to. The truth was that I owned that lot. I had purchased it separately from my house years earlier as a long-term investment. The property was listed under my name, properly recorded with the county, and backed by all the legal paperwork necessary to prove ownership. Since I wasn't actively using it, I simply left it alone. The HOA occasionally mowed the grass, neighborhood kids sometimes played there, and life went on. Then one Tuesday evening, everything changed. I found a flyer taped to my mailbox. "Exciting announcement," it read. "Brookhaven Ridge is proud to begin construction of a new community equipment garage adjacent to the Cole residence." My heart sank. The location they described was my lot. That same week, I attended the HOA board meeting with the flyer folded in my hand. Sitting at the front of the room was the board president, Dale Pruitt. He always carried himself as though he personally owned every house in the neighborhood. "Dale," I said as calmly as possible, "the property you're planning to build on actually belongs to me." He laughed immediately. Not the kind of laugh someone gives when they're surprised. The kind that says they don't take you seriously. "Renata," he replied, "that land is community property. It's always been community property. Our records show it belongs to the association." "Your records are incorrect," I said. "I have the deed." He brushed the comment aside with a wave of his hand. "The budget has already been approved. Construction is moving forward. And if you interfere with a community project, the board can fine you for obstruction." I left furious. My hands were shaking by the time I reached my car. But instead of reacting emotionally, I listened to the small voice in my head telling me to slow down. That evening, I dug through a storage cabinet and found an old file folder I hadn't opened in years. Inside were all the documents I needed: the original deed, the title insurance paperwork, the county recording documents, everything. The lot was clearly identified as Lot 15, and ownership was listed under my name. The next morning, I contacted an attorney named Vincent Mars. "Send me every document you have," he told me, "and don't speak to the HOA again until I've reviewed everything." Several days later, he called me back. What he said completely changed the way I looked at the situation. "Renata," he said carefully, "if they construct a permanent structure on your property without your permission, and you don't immediately force them to stop, that building may legally become part of your land." I sat quietly listening. "Fixtures attached to real estate generally belong to property owner," he continued. "If they finish the garage, there's a strong chance it becomes yours." I didn't say anything for several seconds. Finally, I asked, "So what should I do?" His answer was simple. "Nothing. Nothing. Let them finish." At that moment, neither Dale nor the HOA board had any idea what they were walking into. Over the next 2 months, I watched the project unfold from my kitchen window. Construction vehicles arrived almost daily. Concrete crews, framers, electricians, plumbers, the works. And somewhere along the way, the project stopped being a basic storage garage. Dale got ambitious. He convinced the board to upgrade nearly everything. They added insulated walls, a polished epoxy floor, custom-built cabinets, security cameras, an EV charging station. He even pitched the idea that the garage could serve as a private meeting facility for HOA leadership. The spending never seemed to stop. What began as a modest $20,000 project eventually exploded into an $85,000 one. Meanwhile, I documented every step. I took photographs with timestamps, recorded videos, saved copies of community announcements. I even captured Dale boasting at a neighborhood barbecue that the new garage would become the crown jewel of Brookhaven Ridge. While the board focused on construction, my attorney was building something far more important. A case so solid that even the HOA's own legal team would struggle to challenge it. And the board never saw it coming. As far as they were concerned, the project was nearly complete. The difficult part was over, or so they believed. As the final week approached, excitement spread throughout the neighborhood chat groups. Dale proudly announced a grand ribbon-cutting ceremony. There would be refreshments, a decorative banner, and even a commemorative plaque from the local council recognizing the project. The HOA for what they proudly call their newest community achievement. That was the moment everything unraveled. 3 days before the scheduled ribbon-cutting ceremony, Vincent mailed certified legal notices to every member of the HOA board. The letters clearly explained that the building had been constructed on privately owned property without the owner's authorization. They also warned that any future attempt to occupy, control, or claim the structure could be considered trespassing and unlawful use of private land. That very afternoon, I hired a locksmith. The gate securing the garage was immediately rekeyed. New locks, new chain, new padlock. Then I placed 2 large signs directly on the front of their brand new garage. The lettering was impossible to miss. Private property. No trespassing. Violators will be prosecuted. I stepped back and looked at the building they had spent months constructing on my land. For the first time since this ordeal began, I smiled. The morning of the ceremony arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. Residents gathered around carrying coffee, folding chairs, and phones ready for photos. A few children ran around waving small neighborhood flags, while volunteers arranged refreshments nearby. At the center of it all stood Dale. He positioned himself proudly in front of the garage with a microphone in hand, clearly enjoying the attention. "Friends," he began, "today is an important day for Brookhaven Ridge. This project represents." He never finished the sentence. Someone in the crowd pointed toward the entrance. Dale? Why is there a padlock on the gate?" Another resident squinted. "And what does that sign say?" Dale turned around. The moment he read the words on the sign, every bit of color drained from his face. Private property. No trespassing. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. Conversations broke out instantly. People started whispering. Several residents pulled out their phones. Dale hurried to the gate, pulled out his keys, and tried unlocking it. Nothing. The lock didn't move. That's when I stepped forward, carrying a thick folder. "Dale," I said calmly, making sure everyone could hear me, "I think it's time we discuss who actually owns this property." The crowd fell quiet. I opened the folder. First, I held up the deed, then the title documents, then copies of the certified legal notices Vincent had sent days earlier. The silence became absolute. "This is Lot 15, I said. "I've owned it for years. The ownership records are filed with the county and fully documented." I paused long enough for everyone to absorb what I had said. "And as of today, every part of this garage, the walls, the electrical system, the cameras, the flooring, every dollar invested into it, legally belongs to me." Dale stared at me. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. One of the other board members stepped forward and snatched the folder from my hands. She flipped through the pages rapidly. The more she read, the paler she became. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her eyes shot toward Dale. "This is legitimate." She looked back at the paperwork. "Dale, you never verified ownership before approving construction?" Dale tried to defend himself. He mumbled something about outdated maps, previous board records, and assumptions made years earlier. Nobody was listening anymore. The damage had already been done. Within a matter of days, the HOA's attorney became involved. After reviewing the documentation, he reached the same conclusion Vincent had reached from the beginning. The land belonged to me. The garage qualified as a permanent improvement attached to the property. Legally, the HOA had created a very expensive problem for itself. Their options were limited. Option 1. Remove the structure entirely. The estimated demolition cost was nearly $30,000. Option 2. Compensate me for the value of the building and move on. During an emergency board meeting, the members debated for hours. In the end, the decision was obvious. Demolition would only waste more money. The board voted to pay me for the structure instead. Less than a week later, Dale resigned. The situation became even worse for him when residents learned how much community fundraising money had been spent on upgrades that mostly benefited him. The custom cabinetry, the EV charging station, the premium fixtures. There was even a miniature refrigerator installed inside with his name engraved on it. That discovery ended whatever support he had left. As for me, I became the owner of a fully completed $85,000 garage sitting squarely on my property. Insulated walls, epoxy-coated floors, security cameras, custom storage, every upgrade included. Looking back, I learned something valuable from the entire experience. The most effective revenge isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's not about yelling, arguing, or fighting. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's paperwork. And sometimes it's waiting until the perfect moment to lock a door with a very well-timed padlock. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to subscribe to HOA Revenge Stories so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were in my shoes?